If you want to meet some arrogant people, one of the best places to go is the martial arts and self-defense community. And I should know because I used to be one of those guys when I was younger. Some people, some discerning voices will say I still am, and I'll leave it at that. But it's something you will very quickly encounter in this community once you start training. Having just admitted to being that guy when I was younger, I think the key point is understanding when it's time to make a change. And I was fortunate in that regard, in that I very early on I encountered a bunch of people who were at a much higher level than I was, and just very gently at first, but eventually, and in a more expedient manner, showed me the error of my ways and showed me that there was so much more to learn despite how good I thought I was. And it's not that I was, the best ever. It was also not that I was very bad or anything, but more along the lines of, okay, young grasshopper, you have some skill, but you still have a lot left to learn. And that was well over 30 years ago. I was fortunate, like I said, that I encountered a bunch of very well-trained, experienced people who basically showed me like, look, you're not wrong, but there's so much more to this than what you just said or what you think or what you can do. And there's a lot of stuff you discount as not being efficient that actually does work, but you need this and this and this to make it work, and you haven't done the work to acquire those skills, and so on. Just giving a few examples. And the difficult part about all this is coming to the realization that you might have to bruise your own ego and accept that you are not the hot stuff you think you are, and maybe some humility is in order. I've had to eat crow number of times throughout my career, and I don't doubt that this will remain true. That eventually I'll figure out, like, okay, I was wrong here. Time to change again. Time to accept that I was wrong about this and grow and learn, which should be not that difficult to do, but lots of arrogance in our community, so a lot of people are unable to even accept the idea that they could be wrong, let alone correct course once that is proven to be the case. The mindset is, I think, an important thing. And that is when I started to change, when I was confronted with how wrong I was about certain things and how I lacked a lot of training and experience that other people did have. So their points of view were obviously more informed and more nuanced. It's getting that realization that, okay, instead of sticking to my guns and discounting everything these people are showing me and telling me, maybe try to learn and see what happens. And I was fortunate that I had the good sense to often do that. We're all human, we all fail at a certain point, so eventually I'm sure that I will mess up a bunch more times, and that is a-okay, as long as eventually I get to that point where I understand, like, okay, I was wrong here, or I discounted this or that technique or whatever, and I just didn't I couldn't figure it out. Okay, somebody just showed me this is how it works, and aha moment happens, and then you're like, you can learn and you can move on, and you stop saying something that is demonstrably false when you have that experience of, like, this actually does work. But the mindset is the key thing, is being open to correction and not believing your own hype, not believing your own marketing. Just understand that you are fallible like anybody else, and that you will have to go through these moments where it's just a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow, but you do have to do that. Otherwise, you will never grow, because the only other position that you can take then is the position of, I know everything, I do everything right, there's no reason for me to grow, I am never wrong. That is, if you refuse what I just explained, like understanding that you will make mistakes and that you have to grow and learn from them and so on. If you say, no, that's not me, then by default you are saying, okay, I'm perfect. What I'm doing, that is perfect. That is unrealistic, and that is extreme arrogance, and it gets you nowhere. Now, like I've said many times before, you can be arrogant, but then you have to back it up. You can be very cocky, and that's fine, but then you have to have the skills to back it up, and then nobody forgives you for your mistakes, which will happen. Because we all make them. So again, there's many reasons why being arrogant is not necessarily the best solutions. But the critical part is that you miss opportunities to learn and grow because you're closed off already. And as an example of that, many years ago, I was teaching a seminar. It was a Sanda, Chinese kickboxing seminar. And I wouldn't say it was the most advanced stuff that I was showing, but it was far from just the basic stuff. It was something very specific about how you can put pressure on your opponent and how you can basically corner him in a figurative sense, that you're making sure he goes back to the end of the platform, because we used to fight on a ring without ropes. Or if it's a MMA, that you back him up against the cage, and then what do you do then? The moment he arrives in that backed up position. That was what we were working on, and some very specific stuff. And I gave them 3 options. These are the 3 options that you're going to use, and they all have a reason. One when he stays there or he advances, one if he goes left, one if he goes right, and this is what you do. And the whole purpose of doing those drills was to actually teach tactics that you can use to put pressure on somebody and maintain pressure when they do everything they can to evade from that pressure in a very specific situation. If you can get your opponent with a back against the wall or in the ropes, you have an advantage that you can use, because his mobility is gone. His tactical choices will become much smaller, and you have a lot of options then that makes it a very dangerous situation for your opponent. So that's what we're working on. There were a bunch of people there, and one of them was another coach with a bunch of his students. So the seminar is over, and as I do, I talk with everybody to say goodbye and so on. And he walks over to say goodbye, and I say something like, I said, all people like, do you have a good time? And he's like, yeah, it was okay, but it was pretty basic. I didn't really react all that much. That he could see on the inside, I was smiling, but I didn't say much. I was like, okay, well, sad to hear that you found it basic. What can you do, and so on. That's kind of how I left it. We said our goodbyes, and I don't think I saw him much more afterwards, and that's fine. Here's the thing. Neither him nor a single one of his students were able to do the drill right during the entire seminar. Not once did they get it right. They made mistakes every single time. The reason why became clear to me, and I tried to help them and correct them. It didn't work, especially the coach. It's like he was just doing something else every single time. And the reason why it didn't work became evident once he gave that comment, because he said like, yeah, but this is too basic. So he thought, this is too basic for me. I already know this stuff. So I don't have to bother actually applying myself to it, because there's no point. I already know this. Whereas what I was showing, the other people who were getting it afterwards said like, oh, okay, yeah, this is interesting. We can do something with that. People who had competitive experience and so on, who were, by far, not superior to that coach and his students, but at the very least on par with him and his guys. And they're like, okay, this is a different way of looking at this issue. So, I learned something, and I'm going to use that with my own guys and so on. But he's like, no, this is too basic. And clearly his students either didn't understand what's going on, despite me trying to explain it, or at the very least, they were like, okay, we already know this stuff. If you know it already, then you can do it right the way I show it to you. If you've mastered this skill, then it should be no problem for you to do it correctly. If not a single time you can get it right, then you haven't mastered what you consider to be basic. And in your arrogance, you then dismiss what actually is a learning opportunity. Now, I have seen that coach and his guys over the years compete. And I'm not going to name names, because there's no point putting somebody on blast for something. There's no point. This is a lesson for other people who are open to learning. I've seen him and his guys, and they were not very successful. Why? Well, because, there's a lot of really fundamental stuff that they apparently gloss over, thinking like we already know it. And then when they have to compete, it just doesn't work anymore, because they tend to have more superficial skill, but the nuances are lacking. And then, that's at a certain point not enough when you compete. So for him and his guys, that is a missed opportunity. And throughout the years, if that accumulates, you miss all those opportunities to learn, so you don't make progress. His students don't make that much progress, and the results aren't there. His guys never got to championship level, as far as I could see. It's been a while since I kept up, but for like at least a decade after that seminar, when I was going to competitions and or read the results of competitions, his guys weren't there. I know they competed when I saw him and his guys compete, but the results were very, very negative. They weren't that great. That's what I mean with, curb your arrogance. Try to restrain your arrogance, and that starts with understanding that we all have it in us. That includes me, you, everybody else. We all have this arrogance in us. As soon as you develop a certain level of skill in something, can be martial arts, can be self-defense, can be something else, doesn't matter. But once you get skillful at something, it's very easy when you see people who are not as skillful, or when you teach beginners, it's very easy to believe your own hype. And that is the saddest thing, because it's going to limit what you'll be able to achieve, how far you will get into the arts, into the systems, because you're too closed off already. So what is the solution? The solution I propose is that every now and then you just check yourself, check your own arrogance, and see, am I just dismissing this out of hand? Am I seeing, I'm not seeing what is valuable here because I'm too arrogant, or that I'm just, glossing over it because I think I already know, instead of looking deeply at it and seeing, okay, is there actually anything new here that I might be able to learn? Doesn't cost me anything. And if you come to the conclusion like, right, it's fine, nope, this is nonsense, or this is stuff I already know, okay, move on. But if every single time you see something, you're always like, oh yeah, I already know this, maybe the problem is you then. Maybe then you're the guy who is in desperate need of actually checking his arrogance, and is being left behind by everybody else who is doing the work and who is open-minded. And again, I repeat for clarity for everybody that I was guilty of this kind of stuff, and some people say I'm still guilty of that. They call me an arrogant bastard, and that's fine. I can live with that. I'm a big boy. I can take the criticism. But the thing that I can say now is that, you know what, guys, even if I'm trying, dude. I really try to not be. And you can see how often that before I write something or say something or make an instructional video or write a book and so on, that I'm very much doubting everything and checking and rechecking and asking other people and so on, and seeing is this actually true, or am I full of shit when I'm saying this. So that is, I think, something we can all try to achieve, is just try to maintain control of our inner arrogant asshole. We all have him. Try to keep him on a leash so he doesn't get to go running rampant and trash everything. And basically, like I said, make sure you miss out on opportunities to grow and get better. Right, that's it for today, guys. I hope you found this one useful. As always, like, share, subscribe, and so on. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.